Have you ever wondered if the central government could just wake up one morning and completely redraw the map of India? I mean, could they just merge your state with another, change its name, or split it entirely down the middle, all without the state's actual consent? Well, welcome to The Explainer. If you're a future administrator, a UPSC aspirant gearing up to govern this massive, diverse nation, understanding the literal constitutional foundation of our country is absolutely non-negotiable. So today we're answering that exact question by looking right at the supreme law of the land.
All right, let's just dive right into it. We're looking at Part-1 of the Indian Constitution, which is essentially the architect's blueprint of our political geography. Think about it. Before we can even talk about fundamental rights, the Prime Minister or the Supreme Court, we first need to define the very territory that those institutions govern, right? Articles 1 through 4 do exactly that. They form the absolute bedrock of the Indian nation-state. And honestly, they hold some pretty fascinating surprises about where the true power really lies in our federal structure.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with naming the union, then look at why union and not federation, move into Articles 2 and 3, discuss the simple majority rule, and finally, compare India and USA federalism.
Starting off with Part 1, naming the union under Article 1.
Now, I want you to notice the specific phrasing used here. India, that is, Bharat. You see, when the Constitutional Assembly actually sat down to draft the Constitution, there wasn't a unanimous agreement on what to even call the country. It's true. Some members were passionately arguing for the traditional name, Bharat, pointing to our deep, ancient historical roots. But then others advocated for the modern name, India, because, well, that's what the country was already recognized as internationally. So what did the framers do? They deliberately engineered a historical compromise. By stating India, that is, Bharat, they seamlessly blended our ancient heritage right alongside our modern, forward-looking identity. Pretty brilliant, honestly. Moving on to Part 2, why a union and not a federation? So Article 1 famously describes India as a union of states. But wait a second. India has a federal structure, right? We've got a central government and state governments, and they divide the power. So why not just call it a federation of states? Well, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chief architect of the Constitution, provided a brilliant rationale for this, and you absolutely must remember this for your mains answer writing. He pointed out that the term union was chosen for two very specific reasons. Number one, the Indian Federation is not the result of some agreement among the states. And number two, the states have absolutely no right to secede from it. As Dr. Ambedkar famously put it, the Federation is a union because it is indestructible. The country is one integral whole. It's only divided into different states just for the sheer convenience of administration. Let's jump into Part 3, Articles 2 and 3, and how we actually shape this territory.
Okay, to put this as simply as possible, and watch out because this is a classic UPSC prelims trap, Article 2 deals with admitting or establishing completely new states that are not currently part of the Union of India. Think of it like acquiring a brand new territory and bringing it into the fold from the outside. Article 3, on the flip side, deals entirely with the internal readjustment of existing states. So this means forming a new state out of an old one, making a state bigger or smaller, or just tweaking its boundaries or name. So remember, Article 2 is strictly external, while Article 3 is entirely internal.
Let's look a little closer at Article 3. Because obviously, altering an existing state isn't just something you do overnight. There are mandatory chronological steps that have to be followed. Step 1, a bill proposing these territorial changes can only be introduced in Parliament with the prior recommendation of the President. Step 2, before even recommending that bill, the President has to refer it to the concerned state legislature so they can express their views within a specified time limit. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a totally fair, cooperative process, doesn't it? Like the state gets to weigh in on its own destiny? But here is exactly where the Constitution reveals its strong unitary tilt. And this brilliantly illustrates the real power dynamic at play here. Yes, the state legislature is consulted, but get this, the President and Parliament are not bound by those views. At all. The state's input can be completely accepted or just entirely rejected, even if they submitted their views perfectly on time. And to top it off, if Parliament decides to amend the bill later on, they don't even need to send it back to the state for a fresh reference. Basically, Parliament holds the ultimate trump card. They can literally redraw the internal political map of India completely according to their own will without the state's actual consent. Which brings us to Part 4, Article 4 and the simple majority. Now, you would probably think that changing the very borders of our states would require some kind of grueling, complex constitutional amendment, right?
Actually, no. Article 4 explicitly declares that laws made for admitting new states or altering existing ones are not considered amendments under Article 368. However, there is a massive catch here, and the Supreme Court clarified this in the famous Berubari Union Case back in 1960. While Parliament can alter our internal boundaries super easily, it absolutely cannot cede Indian territory to a foreign country using Article 3. If we are giving away territory, a formal constitutional amendment under Article 368 is 100% mandatory.
So for strictly internal reorganizations, all it takes is a simple majority in Parliament. That's just more than 50% of the members present and voting. It follows the completely ordinary legislative process. But going back to that Berubari exception for a second, when India actually exchanged territorial enclaves with Bangladesh in 2015, a simple majority just wasn't going to cut it. That exchange required the 100th Constitutional Amendment Act. So the golden rule to remember here is simple majority to rearrange the House internally, but a full constitutional amendment to give away a piece of the property. And finally, Part 5, comparing India versus USA federalism. This right here is the ultimate conceptual takeaway for your studies. Just look at this stark contrast. In India, because Parliament can unilaterally alter state borders or even entirely extinguish a state's existence with just a simple majority, we are rightly described as an indestructible union of destructible states. The union itself cannot be broken, but the individual states absolutely can be. Now jump over to the USA. Over there, the federal government cannot form new states or alter borders without the explicit consent of the states concerned. The territorial integrity of an American state is fiercely guaranteed by their constitution. Therefore, the USA is an indestructible union of indestructible states. See the difference? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought, particularly as you prepare to analyze the polity of this nation. You've seen the blueprint now. You've seen that the Constitution grants the central government this sweeping, massive power to literally destruct and redraw the states without their binding consent. Yet we frequently describe our system as cooperative federalism. So how do you reconcile that? How do you have a system where states are destructible entities, but we also have this modern push for an equal partnership between the center and the states? Does this underlying absolute central power undermine the spirit of cooperative federalism, or does it simply act as a necessary safeguard for our national unity? I want you to think deeply about that paradox, because as future administrators, you are going to be the ones navigating it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the framework.